The Connecticut Music Oral History Podcast is a deep dive interview series with musicians, artists, conduits, collectors, and dedicated fans, focusing on 20th century Connecticut music history. This project preserves narratives, heralds unsung movers and shakers, and defines Connecticut's influential role in cultural history. I'm your host, Brendan Toller. I'm an artist, a musician, a filmmaker, and marketing manager of the incredible Verso studios at the Westport Library, where this very podcast is being produced. Verso Studios is a media resource and production hub, serving as an inclusive, empowered, future-forward cultural and learning center. A library branch of the 21st century, Verso Studios provides programming, commercial services, as well as educational and content creation opportunities. We have a state-of-the-art hybrid analog recording studio designed in part by Rob Fraboni, the same guy who built Keith Richards' home studio down the road. We record bands, artists, audiobooks, podcasts, and everything in between. We have video production suites, classes, and events. Check us out at the Verso Studios website and on social media. Lys Guillorn is a singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, and multi-disciplinary artist based in Shelton, Connecticut. She is of the same musical school as Laura Veirs and Kristin Hersh, with a little Emmylou Harris thrown in. Dreamy, lyric-driven, melodically interesting, and undefinable. She calls her genre of music Avant-Twang. Lys is a staple of the present-day Connecticut music scene. Here's our conversation bookended by two tracks.
Dolores and I are listening to the wind. The passage of time gets under my skin, and I try to behave normally. Whatever does that mean? While a squirrel watches me outside the window. Shadow of our house creeps down the yard. The daffodils bloom, the trees are leafing out. The last time that I drove to work, the weeping cherry trees were beginning to turn green along the highway. In the valley below, would I have ever seen it the way I see it now, if this had never happened? What from this life will I remember when I am outside around friends again? Will I recall all the details I have noticed here today? Or will I push away what I've been thinking? How transgressive will it feel to hug everyone I meet? Will the bells ring out in the street just like on Easter morning? Just like on Easter
Hi, Lys.
Hi.
All right, let's jump right into it. So what was your first musical memory?
My first musical memories are of watching 70s TV at my folks' first house. There was a lot of weird musical stuff on TV, and we had a piano and my mom had a guitar, and I would just pick out TV theme shows on the piano by ear. So like 3 years old, just going over to the piano and picking out whatever was on TV. And my mom had an amazing record collection and would put on Beatles records, and we'd just kind of dance around the living room listening to the Beatles. So
that's magic.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Trumbull.
Mm-hmm. So you've always kind of been Connecticut based.
Yeah.
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 And then when did it really go into we always have the first initial exposure to music, and then it's like the bug bites you, right?
I think it was Joan Jett, I Love Rock and Roll, 1981. I had that record on vinyl, and I was like, this could be a possibility for me. And I took piano lessons as a little kid, and it never really stuck because I'm so ear dependent. My mom always picked out and would explain to me what was going on in the backgrounds of all the recordings. Okay, this is the bass, this is the guitar, and she would have me listen very intensely. So I had a sense of what music was made up of. And in piano lessons, my teacher would get frustrated with me because I never wanted to read the music. I would just play by ear. For the longest time, I thought there was something wrong with me, that I'd never be able to write music if I couldn't read it. And then I realized that in rock, you don't have to write notes. You can.
It seems so long for the old guard to let go of that reading music thing. I know how to read music, a little bit, but there's such a rigid. I think that's changing now, but there even when I was growing up, there was such a rigid of what music and what learning music is.
Yeah. Really, I took piano lessons for a long time. Knew I had music in me, and my younger brother and I were very musical, and let's see. I started taking violin lessons in junior high school, and then banjo, and I met Richard Neal, Dick Neal, who would play with James Velvet, and he plays with a lot of folks now. Took banjo lessons and guitar lessons at D'Addario Music, which was at the Trumbull Mall at first, and then moved to Stratford. And Dick was involved in the New Haven scene and explained to me how things worked with local bands. And my parents would follow around Bad Bob, which was one of the bands he played in. And I think the first show I ever saw at the Anthrax was Bad Bob.
What were they like?
They were kind of spiritual, literary, indie, jangly guitar stuff. And we just appreciated having a connection to music in a way that made it seem like it was within our reach to make music and then go play it locally. So Dick made it seem possible that you don't have to be a major rock star to play music. You can be a regular local rock star.
That's super inspiring,
Yeah.
I didn't have that till much later. Probably seeing the New Haven scene, I think, for me. So then what, how do you get to your first record then?
So I played with some gals in high school and some guys from my textiles class. All the sort of artsy weirdos hung out together, and we were like, oh, we all kind of play guitar and bass. Let's hang out at my house and write some stuff and play some In Excess and Cure covers in my parents' rec room. So we did that for a while, just messing around, but we were all so shy and introverted, none of us wanted to sing. I kind of thought, well, maybe I'll sing eventually, but no one would want to take that first step. And sort of on a parallel track to that, my brother bought gear with his paper route money. So he bought a 4-track, he bought a PA, and he was playing out at 13 years old, drums, bass. So eventually I learned how to use the 4-track, and that was my entry into songwriting. When I was in college, I played in a band called the American Pragmatists, and we won a battle of the bands and stuff like that. And, I'd get up on stage and didn't sing and played my ES 335 studio Gibson guitar. But then there were these sort of coffee houses that would take place at Fairfield University in people's townhouse basements. And eventually I was like, oh, I'm going to write a song for this and get up and play it. And I hijacked all my shy, introverted energy to get up and do it in front of people. And that's the way I learned how to tolerate parties in college, was to play. So after college, I really buckled down with the 4-track and wrote a whole bunch of songs. And didn't really know what I was going to do with them, but hung out in my bedroom with, a drum machine and my guitars and sang through a Gibson Minuteman amplifier that had great reverb. So it sounded like I was at the bottom of a well. And eventually a tape of my 4-track stuff made it to Jeff Fierzig in Montclair, New Jersey. And he was making music for commercials in his house, but he was also a documentary filmmaker. So he had some cool stuff, and he contacted me and was like, would you want to come down to Montclair and work on a record in a sort of piecemeal way? I think over the course of a year, I went down maybe once a week.
Were you sending tapes out? How do you think you got the tape?
Oh, my one of my college friends gave it to him. He worked in a coffee shop, and Jeff was a regular and said, here's this.
And by then, had he done Devil with Daniel Johnston?
He had made the band that would be King. But
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Half Japanese.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So it was a really interesting, wild connection to make. Someone who knew a lot of music people through the New Jersey scene. And that's how I ended up with
Right, you
some
played with some
Feelies.
interesting people, on that record.
Yeah, Stan Demeski, Brenda Soder, and Glenn Mercer from the Feelies, and Dean Wareham from Galaxy 500, and Robert Quine.
What was he like?
Robert Quine was funny and charming, and he wore sunglasses the whole session. I think Jeff drove to the city to get him, and he did the session behind a closed door in the other room. So I was so nervous. His part was amazing and left field and clucky and wild, something I would have never been able to play. So I was just in awe. Of course, I got a heinous migraine while we were recording, and then Jeff and I drove him back to the city and just listened to him tell stories about working with Lou Reed and Matthew Sweet, and I just wanted to throw up in the back seat.
Oh.
But I mean, I was like, the magnitude of the situation plus my, nervous disposition and chronic illness stuff all dovetailed, but it was very memorable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. It's amazing. And then where did things go from there? I assumed you toured a little bit.
I didn't.
No.
So I sent out a whole bunch of burnt CDs to people Jeff had suggested, and then found a record label that wanted to put it out, and stuff happened. I got a lawyer. It seemed like it was going to happen. But then the label folded. They put out one Michael Hurley disc.
Well, which one? There's so many. I'm just such a fan that
It has weather in the title. I don't remember exactly which one.
But I could see how you guys are on the same, riverbank or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Weirdos who've got their own thing going on and would be doing that no matter what was happening.
That's right.
Yeah. So I at that point I didn't care. My lawyer was in Westport, and he at one point said, "You're going to take a massive hosing on this. I don't advise doing this." And I was like, "Okay, all right, we'll put a pin in that."
That was over the initial deal. He said that.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we were going back and forth on stuff, and at some point they threw their hands up of the whole business and realized, maybe this isn't a good idea for us to get into. Had nothing to do with me. But then I sat on the recordings, which were done for 5 years while I swirled around in what do I do? But by then I had joined another band called Jargon Society, and we were playing around Danbury. And I realized I could put out the record myself. So I didn't do that until 2003, but I had other stuff going on. And I think it was at the tail end of the last portion of the music industry and the beginning of the digital age, so that I didn't have to call people on the phone. I could use email and digital media to communicate with people, and then physical mail, send out 300 copies of my CD using the Indie Musician's Bible or whatever, and all the college radio shows were listed in this thing. So you'd look and update, okay, who's the program director now? So then or music director, figure out where to send my stuff to and then send it. And I got a bunch of radio play that way and a little bit of press, and didn't tour, and that was that.
Was there a point at which you would have liked to, quote, made it or
I am not an ambitious person. I care about the creative part of stuff. I care about working with other people. I care about opportunities, and connecting other people with opportunities. But I've always had to pay for my own health insurance, which I need. So the option of touring for a long time was never there for me. And maybe if I wanted it more, I would have done it. And it doesn't bother me at all. Every now and then I think, gosh, I wish I were more irresponsible in my 20s, but I had to be responsible. So I'm where I need to be.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Growing up, who were some of your big influences? You mentioned Joan Jett, but I know that there's got to be others.
Oh, yeah. Well, finding Patti Smith was amazing. Velvet Underground, Neil Young. Listen to a lot of weird Smithsonian Folkways records I'd get out of the Trumbull Library, like weird Sacred Harp, obscure blues records. Listen to a lot of Astrid Gilberto, Stan Getz, and Jay Mascis, Kristin Hersh. Seeing Kristin and Jay play solo and just blow the doors off a dump by themselves gave me the courage to play my music in front of people in any way I wanted to present it, with an acoustic or an electric. And like Billy Bragg, solo electric in the 80s and 90s. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Well, playing solo is definitely more of a trip than playing with a band, a head trip. I really like my band now and how we work together. So sometimes playing solo is like, oh, I wish those guys were with me now. But, yeah.
Was the nervousness of it hard to overcome for a while? I mean, I know for me, like, I loved music ever since I was, probably 5, 6, 7, but to sing in front of my friends, I was even in chorus and a cappella, but to sing outside of that in front of my friends, oh boy, no, too nerve-wracking for me. Was it like that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I remember the first couple gigs I played where I sang. My very first gig, like with a full set with me and a drummer, my own songs was at the Urban Jungle, which was Fernando's place before the tune-in. And it was like having an out-of-body experience because I heard my voice coming out of my mouth and the reverb in the room, but it felt like it was not me doing it. So I just channel something else when I perform, and sometimes I'm nervous and sometimes I'm not. But, you know, when I was a kid, I would have completely freaked out. I was the kid who would freak out and call in sick for school when oral reports came around. I was like, no, I am not. I opt out. Now I wish I had those skills. Someone had walked me through how to do that, how to talk in front of people. But usually I don't have a problem on stage now. Something else takes over and you're like, yeah, I know how to do this. I've been doing it for a really long time. So what are you going to do?
Yeah. So after the Jeff album comes out, is there a new configuration, a new set of collaborators, a band? Do you go solo?
So around the time I actually put the record out was when I started going to the Space open mic in Hamden. And I met a whole bunch of people. One of them was Chris Lowe, who was doing booking there. And he said, why don't you put a band together to play this record? Because I was just me. And I was like, well, I had never thought about going back and sort of forensically playing this arrangement, which was never meant to be played by people altogether. So Peter Riccio from the Sawtells and Julie Riccio from the Sawtells and Pete Brunelli, who was in the Sawtells then, they became my backing band. And then Chris Lowe played keyboards and accordion. And we played a bunch of shows, mostly at the Space, but there were some other gigs like at Art Space, and we had a really good time. It was interesting and challenging to work a band and manage people's personalities. And after that, we played at Club Helsinki once.
Where was that?
That was in Hudson, New York. And then eventually that sort of died out, and I continued to play with Peter Sawtells on drums. And he's basically been my drummer for the last 20 whatever years. And we had been in Jargon Society together. Then I morphed into another configuration. My brother played bass for a while, Peter on drums, and then a guy named Ryan Blessey played guitar and lap steel. And then things happened, and it took me 10 years to write the songs that became Winged Victory. And I became really afraid of going into the studio. I think because during recording the Jeff record, I was very nervous about the whole process because I had done a few things in studios before with other bands, but never my own thing where I had to drive 2 hours, work with a stranger, meet all these different people, and try and get what was in my head out, or what was already on my 4-track recordings out into a bigger digital format, or it was actually a hybrid of analog and digital. So these songs sort of formed, and I was terrified. And then Eric Lichter from Dirt Floor contacted me and said, hey, what would you think about working with me to do another record? And all of a sudden it felt way more possible, and I could record in any way I wanted to, in whatever order I needed to make it make sense for me. I thought previously I had to follow somebody else's idea of how you're supposed to make a record. Once I took ownership of that, it became an effortless, fun process.
And did you take ownership of it, or Eric sort of
I
was
did.
like, you could,
No,
Yeah,
it was just kind of like, oh, okay. Boom. I think I had a dream. I had a dream that basically I was at the end of a gestation period. I don't have kids. I was like having this record baby. I was like, oh, I'm almost there. This could be done. And it's in the realm of the possible. So my brother played bass on it. Peter Riccio played drums, and we recorded most of the basic tracks in 2 days. And that was in Chester, Connecticut, where Dirt Floor is. And then I would go back and record overdubs and vocals and more guitars. And I had some guest people play on it, like Dave Hogan, who I had played with in the Grimm generation, and Jeff Chen on cello, and Steve Acetta and Tim Kane on horns. And it came together over, 5 months or so.
It's fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your songwriting method like, if you could go into it, or if you want to?
Yeah, sure. I write mostly in my head, and sometimes, actually, most often, the music and the words are sort of fused together, so everything gets written at the same time. I do deviate from that sometimes. Like in 2019, I was at a Robin Hitchcock show at Fairfield Theater Company. I wrote the lyrics for a song in my head and then went home and played it. I was like, what the hell did you just do? That's very unusual for me, but...
Well, he's so inspiring.
Totally. Yeah. His brain is connected all over the place, and the way he, monologues between songs. I wish I were that effortless. But it's such a delight to watch. And so I just love words, and I collect snippets of stuff. A lot of times people will see me at a show and I'll have my journal out and just doodle something down that I thought of. And, what are you doing over there? Well, people say funny stuff. I want to write it down. Things I mishear. Quotes. We've got such an interesting group of people around here. People are always saying things that make me think of other things, and I want to remember possible song titles that are inspiring. So.
And is there a steady diet of inspiration, music, art, poetry, reading, that you're kind of always submersing yourself in? Yeah. It's,
as an artistic person, I think I'm never not on in that way. There are definitely times when I'm fallow, and I think those times are necessary. There are lots of times where I don't write a song for several months. And occasionally it feels like musical constipation, and I feel like, oh my God, if I don't write a song, I'm going to flog myself. And but then I realized once I do start writing songs again that I was collecting information that whole time, and little things come together. And really, that's even how my first and second records came together. Little bits of things I had been pocketing away for years came together and became songs.
What do you think motivates you? Because I know for some people they need like a purpose, or like almost like a, that other competitive band member to kind of, kick them to get the work done.
I'm driven just by the creative spirit and the process. I'm a process nerd, so I want to know how stuff is done, how stuff is made, how to play different instruments. I play a lot of stuff kind of okay. I mean, the guitar is my main instrument, but I play banjo and lap steel too. I just love to hear music, to play it with other people. I'm driven to finish songs by, having an upcoming show. Like, oh, I should finish that thing I've got almost in the bag, so I can bring it to Peter and Eric, and we can nail it into a form that people might recognize as rock and roll. I was able to bring some new songs to the band this year. I think I wrote way more this year than I had in the last 5 years.
There was a lot of time to do it, right?
Yeah, well, 2020, I wrote a couple, and even just doing a couple felt like a win because it was very hard, as most people know. The uncertainty was too much for me. Even if there was more time, I don't know that there was, because I was working in person as of May 20th of last year. the uncertainty was a little too much for me. But starting in January, things looked a little more hopeful-ish. And that's when things started picking up for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then I assume the band keeps morphing.
We've been pretty stable since 2013.
Mm-hmm.
We had Julie Beeman playing keyboards for a little while. That was really great. She was on keyboards and organ. And the power trio format works for us as far as getting people together and learning songs. And Peter and I have played duo sometimes as well with just drums and guitar. And, keeping it flat duo Jets punk rock style. I like to return to that because it's lean and I could go anywhere and he'll follow me because he's a jazz-trained drummer. But Eric is amazing too. I could completely mess up my songs and Eric will be right behind me. Like, oh, I don't know what chords those are. Eric's right behind me. Very responsive. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but right now the trio is working.
Mm. Yeah, that sounds great. Talk about the New Haven music scene a little bit because I think it's pretty special.
Yeah, so I started hanging out in New Haven probably around 2001, 2002 when I would go to the Space open mic in Hamden. And I met a lot of people there who are still my musical compadres like Jen Dauphiné and Paul Bell-Busty of Mercy Choir and Frank Critelli, and I met James Velvet, and the Cavemen Go were playing. It was just ripe for collaboration, and I found people to play shows with. I found people who I wanted to play on my bills. We all kind of exchanged information and ideas, and then I ended up playing at Cafe 9, and it's become my musical home base ever since. Those are really my two main places that I would play. There was also a place called Elm City Java that had great shows in their downstairs area. They had Panini, and then downstairs you'd play a little festival or something. We played lots of shows there. One show I played, I came outside, there was toast on my car. I was the toast of New Haven. Ridiculous. Books and Company on Whitney Avenue had shows. Frank Critelli was booking a series there. And the diverse musical options just kept me interested. I had come from I was living in Danbury from 1998 to 2009.
And that's its own scene.
That's its own scene. So we had a Danbury scene that was very vibrant, and that's where I played with Jargon Society at Hat City Ale House. We had the Empress Ballroom and Heirloom Arts Theater, Seattle Espresso,
XCI,
WXCI, one of the greatest college radio stations in Connecticut. Hopefully they can remain independent. So, from going to college at Fairfield U, Danbury seemed like a vibrant place to go and play music. And there was jazz every night, like free skronky jazz. What? Art gallery, coffee shops, all that has changed now. None of that stuff. Not a single one of those things is still happening. But then eventually we all started sliding toward New Haven, and I would, drive along Route 34 from Danbury to go play. It's a long slog at 1 a.m, but you get used to commuting for fun. In Connecticut, it's not very far. People in the Midwest have it far worse than we have it. We've got so many little pockets of interesting stuff going on all the time. Yeah, so what? An hour drive, whatever. So New Haven.
Another thing that, I think is really great and admirable is I always see you out at totally different shows, especially new bands. I mean, it's not like you're just going to see your friends. Like, you really actively check out new stuff.
I'm trying. I want to do it even more next year as things get less stressful. I hope. But yeah, I'm doing it now because I get so much energy from live music. Last winter, I got super depressed, not from not being, well, a little bit from not being able to play, but really from not seeing literally anyone play music. At the Space open mics, some of the people other people thought were awful, I would be completely grooving on whatever message they were delivering. If someone is honestly communicating their feelings, that is the best thing I've ever seen. And I find delight in that over and over again. So as soon as things opened up this year and Hank Hoffman was having stuff at Best Video, I was like, yes, outside shows early. This is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Then Cafe 9 opening up again and those Sunday matinees, essential for my mental health.
Yeah, I noticed that if I go off some, don't listen to music for a while, or there's that study that says like it's like withdrawal from, it's it's been a weird year to have that kind of tamped down. I mean, at least it's here a little bit, but it's extra fun then when you go to a show and you're seeing Mighty Moonchew. You've been inside for months and all of a sudden you get the top of your head blown off. You're like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. This is the Evelyn Gray. Just, okay, let's do this. Saw a show at the Beer Axe a couple of weeks ago. I was like, a new venue. I am in a different place, somewhere I don't normally go. Seeing people I've never seen before. It just feels great. And what I wish we could do is to invite more people into the scene who aren't other musicians, to get regular folks to treat local music the way they do local vegetables at a farmer's market. Like, all right, the dirt's still on the carrot. You want the music with the schmutz still on it. You want it dripping and throbbing with the heart juice of whoever made it. And that's how I love it. I maybe I'll be the Alice Waters of musical cuisine in Connecticut. Here, taste this dirty, delicious thing. Well, yeah. How do you do it?
I don't know. I'm always thinking. I had more energy a few years ago to book like large multi-band things. Paul Belbasti and I did a thing called Wobbling Roof Review for Fridays in March of 2016, which he then continued on to Mercy Choir and Friends. And we had an enormous amount of people playing at once, or on the same bill in Never Ending Books. Everyone crammed in there. It was so much fun, but it was also so exhausting. I have to learn how to pace myself a little bit better so I can still, bring people together without somehow ruining myself in the process.
Yeah.
I'll rest up this winter, see what I can rustle up.
Will you talk about Paul? I mean, he's seems like one of your close friends, and he's so prolific, and I think
it's a little
so inspirational to us all. Yeah.
Paul and I have been musical compatriots since those open mic days at the Space when he was playing with Left and Right, and we just respect the heck out of each other's songwriting, and we collaborated on a little EP in 2013 where we each traded lyrics and then wrote music for it. So now we're doing that again for another set of songs. And we actually wrote like 4 of them in 2019 and didn't get to record them because of the pandemic. But now we've got a date set for January. So,
do you have tricks like that, like the oblique strategy cards or something like that? Or this is kind of exquisite corpse, right?
Yeah, Paul does. I don't do that so much. I just wait for whatever's happening. I have worked with prompts before, and it can be fairly effective, but Paul's got basically 2 books of 100 prompts that are amazing. And he's a musical thinker, and I appreciate that. So I like working with someone who's intense and thoughtful.
Yeah. What's your experience been, I'm sorry to genderize like this, but as a woman, in the music?
I don't know that I am a woman in the music industry.
Gotcha. Yeah. You don't see it that way.
No. I mean, I consider myself non-binary.
Right.
And there wasn't a word for that when I was little.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, oh, rock star. Okay, that could be me. But there weren't words for that. I have encountered horrible sexism, of course, and pigeonholing. But I also gravitate toward the people who are not like that and who hand me opportunities so that then I can share those opportunities with other people. Things have happened where, I stopped playing shows wearing a skirt because I got sexually harassed a few years ago. And I didn't realize how badly that show affected me until later. I was like, I don't feel safe. I feel like a cartoon ham. So I want to feel powerful and like, it's just me and my guitar. I don't want to be made more self-conscious because I'm a woman. I just want to play music with my friends. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that came to mind too, not necessarily on the same subject at all, but on, that you are so supportive of the artists you like locally. I've always seen you go up to people and say, that was a really great set, or, you're always very instilling confidence in people, I think.
Thank you. I just want people to know how much I appreciate their music because it's really essential to me. And this musical community means a hell of a lot to me.
What's on the griddle for you?
What's on the griddle?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in the short term, I've got my couple last shows of the year, and gonna keep teaching new songs to the bandmates, and I want to, over the winter, start mapping out the next record because I think I've got enough to get started on. And I make these little charts of what instruments I think will be on them. And I might like some help from some friends who are more arrangery type people to add strings or something like that. And see what happens.
Will you try out a new studio? It seems like you do that each record, which is kind of fun, right? It's like you're going on an adventure. You're not going to the same...
Yeah. We got to work with Chris Ruggiero a bit with Sunny Side Down and Tinctoria, and that was fun. That studio, Gold Coast, isn't there anymore, but I love trying out different studios. We worked at Bonehead, which is a small project studio in Cheshire. Lots of people work with Tom Boudreau. Had a great experience. I just want to try it all, and maybe Sam Carlson try out there, maybe try here. I want to try a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Who knows? Every song in a different studio. It's possible.
Yeah. Do you have any kind of daily rituals, like as an artist, to I don't know, keep yourself inspired or keep your head straight or anything?
I journal a bit, but like flossing, I don't do it quite as often enough as I would hope. I meditate, and I think that helps a lot to keep my brain clear of debris. It's not foolproof. There's a lot of debris.
Advice for an artist who doesn't know where to start or how to get started, or just advice for artists in general, I guess.
To just begin and not be afraid that it has to be perfect. I think one of the things that stopped me early on or made me more hesitant was like, oh no, this record is an indelible mark upon the world and I can never, repeat this experience. And just go in and do it. The next one will be different. Peter Riccio has reminded me of that time and time again. The Sawtells have an enormous amount of songs and records, and they're all amazing. And he says, yeah, you're always going to listen back to your record and hear something you wish you did differently. That's what you take with you for making the next one. You don't beat yourself up like, why did we use that reverb sound? You know, because then you listen 5 years later and you're like, yeah, I like that. All right, I'm not freaking out every time I listen to this. Okay. To find mentors, and maybe mentor is too heavy a word. Find people who are a little bit further along than you as an artist.
Did you do that?
Yeah, I think with the Space open mic, I was finding people who were, or even before that, when I was playing with Jargon Society, Peter Riccio was playing in bands in Boston. He had put out a record with Kramer. Elisa and Freak Baby had played at various Riot Girl Fests. So they helped me figure out how to do local music in a way. And then older folks on the scene offered opportunities. As much as open mics make me horribly nervous because you only have 2 songs, you can't warm up, you have to just go and play. They're amazing for networking, and I hate the word networking so much. I hate career, I hate networking, I hate webinar. All those things make a whole lot of sense, though, if you just divorce them from their corporate awfulness. Talking with other people and seeing where they're at, honestly, is the best thing as an artist. And then going in your little hidey hole and crawling into your alone space where only you can be, and letting whatever needs to come out without judging it. That's the best thing.